something missing from your life? Do you have a purpose? Do you get irritated when you have nothing to do? Do you distract yourself when silence is approaching? This is Soul Mechanics, practical tune-ups to be a healthy human, and I'm your host, Kate Foley. The word God carries centuries of meaning and emotion with it. The word God makes some people bristle. For others, it brings comfort. For me, God is the mystical force that weaves through everything and everyone. I don't pretend to know how God works. I don't know if there is a reason for everything. Think of your life as a river, and you are in that river. You can be a willing participant or an unwilling participant. You can surrender to the river or you can fight the river. Are you going to hold on to a branch on the side of the river? Are you going to try to get out of the river? Are you going to panic every time the river takes you downstream? In this metaphor, I see God as the river. God is life. You can fight life or you can allow life to take you where it wants you to go. I oscillate between desperately clinging to a feeble branch on the side of the river and clawing at the muddy cliffs. But whenever I let go of the branch on the side of the raging river, I'm always surprised that I'm not pulled under. When I talk to the river responds as if we are one. Can I control the river? No. Does a river respond in a direct and linear fashion? No. But the river throws a paddle at me and maybe a big broken branch just when I need it. There might be times when I'm forced to swim long distances. But that's the river forcing me to develop muscle and endurance for wrestling alligators down the way. I might hit a couple of rocks, but the river carries me to a dry bank where I can rest. When I'm hungry, a fruit tree appears, with a fruit branch hanging over the exact spot where I'm passing. You can't fight a raging river. You have to surrender to it. But you will always be given what you need to direct yourself. Hear what I said. Direct yourself. Maybe you've been hurt by everyone you know, and you're alone. Maybe you can't seem to find anyone who you can trust right now, and you want to be alone. Maybe you hurt people, and no one wants to be around you, and you're alone. Maybe you haven't hurt anyone, and no one has hurt you, but you still find yourself alone. This is a rare opportunity to connect to God, to let go of the branch, and allow the river to take you. I will remind you, I am not a religious person, and this is not a religious advertisement. I'm talking about our connection to our source. I'm talking about a dialogue. If you're threatened by what I'm saying, you might want to take a deeper look at some of the gaps in your life, because this connection is vital to our physical and mental health. And yes, it is invisible to the naked eye. The challenge is that many people think they're completely alone in life with no deeper connection. They have no spiritual well upon which they can drink. It might be because they feel betrayed by their notion of God, or that God has been forced upon them at some point in time in their lives. This is understandable, I get it. But think about how all the things that matter to a human, like health or family or love or touch, have at some point in history been capitalized or marketed or manipulated or used as a tool to control people. It's the same way with God. You can't blame God for how humanity has portrayed God. God is a human construct, but at the same time, not at all. God is personal and impersonal all at once. This incredible force has mystery and familiarity simultaneously and perpetually. When you sit and commune with God in whatever way is right for you, and you really focus, you can tell that someone or something is listening. We need a higher power. Today, this is the case more than ever. We have relationships with each other and with animals and plants. This is all necessary for our healthy functioning and survival. But the relationship with our higher power, with our spiritual source, is just as vital. I'm not telling you how to develop that relationship or how to navigate it. That would be like me telling you about your marriage or your relationship with your mother. Every relationship is different and unique to you. What I'm saying is that every one of us has a pocket that can only be filled with divine love. But here's the glitch. Many people don't know how to connect. They don't know anything about a divine relationship, mostly because it can't be proven, and it requires faith in the unseen. Through personal experience and observation, I've seen that it begins with surrender. What do I mean by surrender? I mean, stop trying to control everything in your life. Stop thinking that it's even within your control. And then trust. Trust that someone you've always known and loved, but can't see or touch, will forever have your back. And then become still. What is stillness? Stillness begins with observing all the chatter in your head. Simply observing the thoughts. Lots of people think that their thoughts are who they are. And that is part of the problem. Our minds are incredible tools, but our investment and identification in the constant stream of thought is problematic, and it's causing emotional problems for people. I've said this before. We have control over our thoughts. Our thoughts do not have to run our lives. Every thought does not require investment. We have the capability of watching it rather than adding to it. My point here is that once you begin to track your thoughts and observe them, you can then become still. The body responds to slowing down your thoughts in really healthy ways. Once you become comfortable with stillness, then you might test out being alone. The word alone conjures concern for many people. I used to live alone in the woods. I would get a kick out of telling people this simply to watch their faces. When I said, I live alone in the woods, I would often get a response as though I had a tragic loss. People would say really ridiculous things to me, trying to convince me that living alone in the woods is a problem. Aloneness is very different from loneliness. But frequently, people ascribe loneliness to being alone. There are a ton of studies on our health and well-being related to social interaction. I agree with this, and I see the merit in it. However, in my experience, I see a dysfunctional drive to avoid being alone. I've seen parents guilt their adult children to remain at home so they wouldn't feel alone. I've seen spouses remain in turbulent marriages simply because they didn't want to face feeling alone. It's fear, and I see many people's decisions motivated by that fear. I felt this way after my divorce. Initially, I thought, oh my God, I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life. Then, after being alone and living alone, no kids, no pets, no friends, or my friends lived far away, no partner, I realized this isn't bad at all. This is kind of nice. No agenda, no pressure, no noise, no one judging my potato chip consumption, ultimate freedom. Did I have lonely times? Yes. But when I shifted my perspective and thought logically, I realized there is no mathematical way that I could be alone for the rest of my life. In fact, it would take incredible effort for me to remain alone in the same situation. And that turned out to be true. Sometimes isolation surfaces an unknown, unfamiliar part of ourselves that we don't want to confront. Sometimes being alone causes uncomfortable feelings to surface. Perhaps when uncomfortable feelings surface, we make decisions based on fear, or we think we've lost our grip on life, or we think that we're a disappointment as a person, or as a member of society, or as a daughter, or a son, or a mother, or a father. Well, just because something feels uncomfortable doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong or bad. Stop your thought spiral and really question, What is it that you're judging about being alone? You might come to some surprising and liberating conclusions. It is truly courageous to face the unfamiliar and choose to be accepting of our current circumstances, despite how we may feel inside. I think it's important to take the moment as it is. So you're alone, and maybe you feel isolated, but this is a temporary moment. Soon enough, you'll be doing something else, or feeling and thinking something else, perhaps with someone else. So take this moment and observe these uncomfortable feelings. Look at all of the shoulds and supposed tos. What should you be doing? Who should you be? Why should you be out on a Saturday night? Why shouldn't you be in bed resting? Are these your thoughts, beliefs, and desires? Where did these come from? When we take the time to examine our discomforts, the next time you see them, they won't feel so unfamiliar. In fact, the next time you see them, they might not be strangers at all. And one day, they might be welcomed by you. Being alone can transform you. By accepting your aloneness, you can become an expert at self-knowledge and eventually, effortlessly, navigate your inner world. Nothing is more rich than self-knowledge. However, transformation can be very painful. Imagine every bone in your body breaking to form a stronger structure, not once, but over and over and over again. It's not enticing. And not just anyone can do this. To be alone, to face your darkness, to transform your life, and to seek higher counsel requires spiritual muscle. This cannot be forced. It requires patience and endurance. If you aren't ready for long periods of stillness or silence, don't worry. Your ego will take you back into the world of noise and distraction. God doesn't guide you to areas where you don't belong. You can't sneak behind the spiritual police tape. If you're back there, you're ready. But how you choose to work with stillness is always up to you. Some people cannot be still. Some people hurt themselves or others to avoid stillness. And some people dive right in, bravely embracing their monsters. Again, it's your choice. And choice is what separates good from evil. Are you uncomfortable with being alone? Does silence bother you? How still can you be and for how long? I'm not talking about being still in front of your phone, computer, or a glass of wine. Aloneness, silence, and stillness are all relative concepts. It comes down to being receptive and listening, connecting to an unseen benevolence intimately. Being alone, being still, listening without distraction, nurtures this bond. You know that voice that's in your head when you're having a really bad day, or in the middle of a traffic jam, and you're already late, or something really rattles you and you feel fear down to your bones? And there's a very subtle, very quiet voice that says, "It's okay. Just keep walking." Or maybe it says something like, "Slow down," or "Don't eat that," or "Be kind." That voice is your connection. Once you begin to listen to that voice and nurture the relationship, it gets louder. And you want to hear it because it's freaking wise. God and intuition always bring you to compassion and understanding. When I say understanding, I do not mean that you will ever understand people. You may never know why people do what they do, but the process or the journey of seeking understanding reveals many beautiful truths about you and the world. God will always guide you to seek deeper truths. God will always guide you to soften your heart and reach out for help and to give of yourself. God lives in paradox. When you feel most broken, when you feel most burdened, it is then that you need to reach out to help others. You have something to share with the world, and it's important to act on it. Taking the time to be alone, truly alone, can connect you to this source of wisdom and direction. Don't judge yourself or others for being alone. Consider it as an opportunity. And as with everything, it's always temporary. This is Kate Foley. Thank you for listening.